The Blast from Our Past Network.
Jake, welcome back. Was your trip productive?
Fairly.
This is Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's come to check on our progress.
Your clones are very impressive. You must be very proud.
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.
Ever made your way as far into the interior as Coruscant?
Once or twice.
Recently?
Possibly.
Then you must know Master Cypher Diaz.
Baba, Uded Sohib. Master who?
Cypher Diaz. Is he not the Jedi who hired you for this job?
Never heard of him.
Talking Back.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Talking Back, the podcast where we like to chat about past achievements in movies, comics, video games, and more. I'm your host, Tim, and this week on the podcast, we are doing the second episode in our Star Wars franchise walkthrough. This week, we are covering Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Dean is here, as well as a very special guest. And when this guest isn't busy podcasting, you can find him collecting bounties past the Outer Rim, enjoying a cold beverage at the Mos Eisley Cantina, or escaping a Sarlacc pit. Welcome back, Corey Stevenson.
Should I do my Boba Fett voice?
Oh, hell yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent.
Yeah. Or I guess in this case, it would be my Jango Fett voice.
Right.
Boba Fett's in it. It's just a smaller voice.
Yes, he is. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Dad, Tom Nui's here.
Baby Boba. He's adorable.
Yeah.
He is. And thank you guys for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Of course, Corey. Anytime. You know you're always welcome. It's an open door policy here. Dean, welcome.
Thanks, Tim. After that intro, I've got a bad feeling about this one.
Yeah? Why? Hey, dude, if you're going to drop one of your bad jokes, you have to at least be ready to back it up when I call you on it.
I said because of after that intro.
Okay. What's your bad feeling?
You know, the funny thing is my brain immediately went, because if I ever hear that, my brain immediately goes, I got a bad feeling about this drop. You always say that, Frost. You always say, I got a bad feeling about this drop.
Yeah.
I mean, that works too. That can work too.
But we're not talking aliens here.
Talking Star Wars.
That's right.
We are talking Star Wars, yeah. Our second episode here. We did a Star Wars warm-up episode where Dean and I touched on our background with the franchise. Corey, you weren't on that episode, so I'd like to give you an opportunity here. Just kind of share with the listeners like your background with Star Wars. Maybe what you saw in the theater, kind of what you think of the franchise as a whole, just, high level, just so people understand a little bit about where you're at with this franchise.
Yeah. Tim and I are the same age. We're both born in 1978. I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater. That's like one of the first movies I can remember seeing. And from that point on, Star Wars just became my life. I do like to say that Aliens is my favorite single movie of all time, but Star Wars is life. Return of the Jedi is my favorite movie. It's got a lot of nostalgic ties for me. But I do love the OT, the original trilogy. I love the prequels, and that was assisted by the Clone Wars and everything. But I have definitely grown to... I never hated them. I never started out hating them, but I did get wrapped up in a lot of the negativity towards them. And like a lot of people, and you guys included, I know, to some extent, the cartoons help, to kind of make you sort of solidify your love for it. And now I like the prequel era, like just the era itself, as much as I love the OT era. I'm hit or miss on the sequel stuff, but I'm not going to write the sequels off just yet because we don't have that Clone Wars cartoon thing to kind of maybe solidify it for me. I'm not sure, and I do think that Star Wars is something that you need to look at over time, and it's not something sort of made for right here and now. It's made for generations down the road. Maybe the sequel trilogy will hold up better. I don't know, but right now I'm not in love with the sequel era. And as far as extended stuff, I read the Dark Horse comics and everything back in the day. So Star Wars has always been in my life in some way, shape, or form. And I love it. I absolutely love that galaxy far, far away.
Cool. Perfect. And we know your favorite character is Boba Fett.
I mean, 5 years old, you see like somebody like that on screen and you're just like, oh my God, like this, it's amazing. And yeah, Boba Fett's awesome. I'm watching the show, and everything, and his comeback in Mandalorian was really cool. But, OG Boba Fett will always be my favorite. But guys and gals, I love Jango Fett. Right when I first saw him right out of the gate, I love his silver and blue. I liked how streamlined he looked. I also kind of liked how he was a little bit beefy. He's kind of got a little bit of a dad bod, And those guns are so cool too. So Jango Fett, honestly, I think he's cool as hell.
Okay, so Jango Fett, second favorite character in Star Wars?
It's weird. I would almost tie them, Boba Fett and Jango Fett, for number one. But number two is definitely Papa Palpatine, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Tim, you and I are the same on that one. I think he is fantastic and absolutely love Sheev Palpatine. And I'm not going to be on the Revenge of the Sith episode, but I just want to say I love that movie because of the glee that is in Palpatine's eye, when he's fighting like Yoda and everything. That Revenge of the Sith is like a movie about one man's greatest day of his entire life. And I love that about that movie because I love Palpatine so, so much.
Well, we are expecting a recording from you further detailing those thoughts for Revenge of the Sith. So
I will.
Don't let the listeners down, Corey.
I will. No, I won't. I won't let the listeners down.
Okay, really quickly, though. I want to know, who is your least favorite character? Can be anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I don't love Jar Jar. I love Phantom Menace. I think it's a great movie. It's hard for me to get on board with Jar Jar, and I know that that's really cliche, but it is hard for me to do. I also have never really been a big fan of like C-3PO as a kid. I was
really?
I didn't really care. I never connected to the droids. Maybe because I connected immediately with Boba Fett. So yeah, honestly, it's sad but true, but I think Jar Jar's probably my least favorite. But he doesn't make it that I can't watch that movie, but he's never been redeemed in my eyes. And even in the Clone Wars cartoons, I didn't love him there either, in which they toned him down a lot in that, but I didn't love him. And to go with your conversation in Phantom Menace, I think that Jar Jar being a Sith Lord is a fun little mind experiment. I don't believe that Lucas had any intention of that happening.
No, but maybe that gets pushed along even more in this movie.
No, Tim.
We'll get there.
No,
Settle
Tim.
down. We'll get there. Dean,
no,
did
Tim,
you?
he's
Did
just
you see
dumb in this movie.
Dean, well, he's barely in the movie. Dean, okay, hold on. A Sith pretending to be dumb would appear dumb. That's the whole
Tim,
idea.
I'll tell you why it is completely opposite that when we get there.
Okay, sounds good. Dean, what's your background with the movie?
The background with this movie, I saw it in theaters. I didn't get advance tickets, so I got to sit right in the front row. The first time I was on a solo date was to this movie. Like not with like all your friends, but there's a girl there you like. It was just me and the girl, first time. And much like the romance in this movie, it was doomed because she is my ex-wife.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's true.
Okay.
So I love this one. I love this movie.
you got a lot of feelings about this one.
I've got baggage in this movie, Tim.
Oh,
wow.
No. Oh, no.
I did not see that coming at all.
No, not at all. Now, I did see this in the theater as well. At the time when I watched it in the theater, I liked it more than The Phantom Menace. Like, for me, the thing with Star Wars that gets me more than anything is the story. That's what I love about Star Wars. And it's one of the reasons I feel like I'm able personally to overlook a lot of the shortcomings, because I try to look through for that story. So this movie in particular, if you can get past the bad acting, if you can get past some really dry dialogue, the story itself in this movie is really quite moving. That's what I rediscovered on this watch. And while it's very obvious to me that, like, just through discussions I've had with lots of people about this movie in particular, it's not really well liked. It's not really appreciated. But I really enjoyed revisiting this movie this time. And I'm here today to advocate for this movie. And
Okay.
Dean, we have covered 2 Star Wars movies so far. I would like to say there is already movement in my rankings.
Wow.
Oh wow! I know Dean's rankings are always perpetually in flux.
Always in motion.
Always in motion. Bodies in motion, stay in motion in Dean's list. That's for sure. Wow, I'm impressed, Tim. Coming on this episode, I thought I was going to be the strong advocate for it, but I'm happy to hear that. And I do want to say that in this social media crazy world where like you have to either love something or hate it, and there's like no room for gray, I'm gonna say there's a lot of things I don't like about this movie, and is it my favorite Star Wars movie? No, it's not my favorite, but I do love it. I do very much enjoy it, and I think you can overlook some of the bad things because there's so much fun in this film, and the story, like you said, Tim, is a lot of fun. I do have a thesis on this film. Should I bust it out now or should I save it?
Go ahead. Just don't ruin anything, but yeah.
Well, okay. Do you mean
because a lot of people haven't seen this movie yet?
What are you talking about, Tim?
Okay, because
everybody knows what happens.
I do have spoilers in this, and I know that Dean usually spoils things first, so I think I'm going to be the one that spoils it. But what I love about this movie is I consider this George Lucas's equivalent of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yes, he did American Graffiti, but I feel like this was his sort of American Graffiti coming of age story. Fast cars, sexy women, and drugs only because of, well, I'll get to that in a second. But so sex, hot guys, Anakin and Obi-Wan, both of them are hot. Hot babes, Padmé, Zam Wesell, the Blue Jedi, Alia Sakura, like in the Coruscant clubs, so many just sexy people in the background, guys and gals. You even saw Ahmed Best, who plays Jar Jar Binks without his, he played a background character. Good-looking dude. Just this movie is chock full of good-looking people. Drugs, death sticks, of course, right? Rock and roll, we got fast speeders like the one Anakin steals to chase Zam Wesell. We got Jango Fett's seismic charge. That thing is rock and roll. We got Anakin cutting off that Tusken Raider's head. And finally, we got Mace Windu cutting off somebody else's head. So that's how I look at it, as this movie is like George Lucas like being like, Here's American Graffiti, but like in space. It's like a Corvette Summer, like all those kind of movies, those coming of age movies, that were very popular in like the late 70s and everything. And even like Corvette Summer has Mark Hamill in it. I feel like he was trying to do that here, and of course, we have a lot of wooden acting and no chemistry between Padme and Anakin. But, if you can overlook that stuff, it's a wild ride.
Yeah, Corey, I'll tell you what, I love that thesis because while there was no movement really on my list, there was slight movement because I did have Attack of the Clones at the bottom. And what I did is I dug a hole after watching it and buried Attack of the Clones even more down into the ground. But after your thesis just now, I grabbed the shovel and I've started to dig it up again because maybe I need to look at this thing one more time. Ooh. I love that thesis. It makes me like it.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I hope that we come at this and we look at it from all angles because it is not a perfect movie, and I do think it rightfully so falls in some people's latter half of their rankings, but hopefully we can also point out some of the cool stuff about this movie.
Yeah, it falls in almost everybody's latter half of the rankings. But Corey, I like what you said when you said coming of age, because that's what this movie needs to be, because it's a coming of age for Anakin. Dean, I can't believe that you, a person who has never come to this podcast against a movie in your life, would say such a thing like that on a Star Wars episode.
I know.
I was shocked. Scandalous.
You have let me down.
I have told you on podcasts before, I only dislike movies if there's something that really, really offends me. If there's something that's really unforgivable, and I do think there is something in this movie that is unforgivable for me. But in saying that, Corey's right. It's not just good and bad. I don't just hate this movie. I love this movie. I like this. Like the second half of this movie, I'm really, really digging. It's the first half of the movie I just cannot get on board with.
Much fear I sense in you.
It's funny because I think my favorite is the first act of this movie.
Okay, that's why this is going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's why this is going to be great. There's lots to love about the movie, but there's a few things that every time I watch it, I just cannot get over because it's what I hate when I watch a movie. It's one of the things that I just really don't like.
I love it.
Now, this movie was released in 2002 with a budget of $115 million, and this film grosses $653 million. So, huge amount of money. Didn't quite do as good as The Phantom Menace, which is a bit surprising, but still, tremendous success.
I don't think that is surprising. I think all that negative feedback from Phantom Menace probably hurt the numbers with this one, because I remember going into this one. I mean, remember, you guys talked about it on the episode. Just the Phantom Menace was not, over time, became less well received. But I agree with you, Tim. I think we all have false memories about how immediately people think it was bad. I don't think so. I think immediately Phantom Menace people did receive it well, and then it kind of this snowball effect happened, and I think that affected the numbers here with Attack of the Clones.
I mean, it must have, right? But I can't imagine who would have gone to The Phantom Menace and then not gone to Attack of the Clones 3 years later, right?
It's. I don't think it's that. I think it's the people who went to Phantom Menace like 5 times, and then they only went to Attack of the Clones probably twice.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
I think it's the same thing that happened with Force Awakens and like Jurassic World. Like you just go back to the movie over and over because you're just seeing it again. You know, you're just seeing your thing again. But then once the next one comes a short amount of time later, you just go to it once.
Now, one notable change from The Phantom Menace to this movie was that this film was shot in 24-frame HD digital camera instead of the traditional 35mm film. And this was actually only the third film ever to record in HD and was the catalyst for the movie industry shifting to HD cameras. Now, Corey, I'm not sure if you recently watched Phantom Menace. Obviously, Dean and I have. Dean, did you notice a visual difference between these two movies?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did as well. There's definitely a different look and style to it.
I would say I personally prefer Phantom Menace's look because I
Agreed.
love that film look, but
Same.
I think they did good stuff with the cinematography in this.
Yeah.
What you get in this with the HD camera that I like better is all the wild stuff they can do with the Jedi and the lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
That type of stuff just pops off the screen in this movie, and that's the reason why they were using digital stunt doubles in this movie as opposed to regular stunt doubles in the first movie. So you can do some real cool Jedi shit in this movie.
Yeah,
Cool.
you can see Dooku's head floating a little bit here and there.
Yeah, definitely. You can.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get going here with the story. So there is unrest in the Galactic Senate. Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic. This separatist movement, under the leadership of the mysterious Count Dooku, has made it difficult for the limited number of Jedi Knights to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Senator Amidala, the former Queen of Naboo, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issue of creating an army of the Republic to assist the overwhelmed Jedi.
And right out of the gate, I love how this movie opens with the Coruscant upside down. And it's right away, I think you're supposed to understand that everything is upside down. Like the Sith is running the Senate and everything. And this visual cue that I think George Lucas does a great job with, of having the whole thing upside. It's the only movie in the whole series that does this. And then even when you get into Coruscant at the beginning scene, it's cloudy, it's foggy because the haze of the cloud of Sith has fallen over everything. It's right there, right out of the gate. He's telling you that everything is messed up right now.
Yeah, I've never actually cued into that, but I like that that idea. Yeah, that's cool. What I was
it's a great idea.
What I like about the beginning actually is it feels like a really nice continuation from the last movie. You've got now Senator of Naboo Amidala. She's landing on Coruscant along with her decoy Corday, and it felt like this event. It could have taken place like days after The Phantom Menace, but it's been 10 years. But I like and appreciate the feeling of continuity here. They don't make it feel like there was a 10-year gap.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that one of the like decoys. We have decoys again, and I like that one of the decoys dies. Because it just like the start of the movie raises the stakes right away. No decoy died in the Phantom Menace, right? So right away it's like, this is different. This is more serious already than the whole last movie you watched.
It was pretty violent.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Corday.
yeah. I mean, R.I.P. for sure. I'm not happy she's gone. I'm just happy it's serious now.
And how cool was that Naboo like giant ship that they come in on? You know,
yeah.
I love all the ship designs. I always love the Naboo fighters. I think they're amazing looking. But I love every design in the prequel era. I love every gun. I love all the ships, how shiny and everything it is. And I love that giant Naboo. It's not a fighter, but it's like some kind of transport ship.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful. I think it's amazing.
Their ships are so cool because most of the other ships in the universe kind of look a bit dull. It's not that they're old, but it's just the material. You can tell the material that's being used just isn't like a reflective surface. It's not very nice. It's not clean, more like concrete or something. This ship looks like it's made out of chrome, which is a pretty huge flex for the effects department, because to get chrome looking correct is probably the most difficult thing to do. So instead of just deciding to make this ship anything else, they decide to make it the most difficult thing possible for them to work with, and it looks perfect. You can never tell at any point that this might be a fake ship. It always looks real. It's beautiful.
Agreed.
Now, very early on, we get one of my favorite scenes out of any of the Star Wars movies, and that is 7 Jedi sitting in front of Palpatine talking politics. I love that the Jedi Council can't detect a Sith Lord right in front of them.
Right in front of them. That's really cool.
Yeah, he asks Yoda right to his face. He's just like, "Hey, Yoda, do you sense anything going on?" And he's like, "Nope, can't do it. I can't sense anything." And he's like, "Great."
And I think that's something that is very understated in the film, but should also be understood as being monumental. Like, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I know that Palpatine is Sidious, but yeah, he's in front of like multiple Jedis being like, "Guys, look at me," you know? I'm nobody, but no, you're not. You're the most amazing villain of all time, you know?
That's awesome.
So I think you're right. That's a good thing to point out, because it really, really shows you, as much as Librarian Jocasta Nu shows us the hubris of the Jedi in like a very perfect moment, this shows you how powerful Sidious is without having to show you anything at all. He's powerful in his absence of power.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, they're showing his power in the ability to hide himself, to cloak himself, right? A force as powerful as him should immediately be detected by the Jedi. And yet there's all these masters in the room with him, and nobody can detect everything. That's how good he is at hiding himself from the senses of these masters. I think it's excellent.
And how arrogant he is at just knowing that he's better than them, just knowing that there's no way they'll even detect it.
Yeah.
I love Sheev.
What a great
Palpatine is able to convince the Jedi Council, since there's already been an attempt on Padmé's life, to accept protection from the Jedi, in particular, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and more importantly, his Padawan Anakin. Now, this obviously is a benefit to Palpatine's plot because he wants Anakin to become closer with Padme. So this is one of the reasons he's doing this. And that kind of throws us into meeting Obi-Wan and Anakin. And I like the dynamic that they introduce with the two, because you can tell they've got this really close relationship. Like, they have fun banter. They clearly, like each other. But Anakin also seems to be a really unobedient Padawan at the same time.
He's a little bit of a bastard in this opening scene here.
Yeah, I like Obi-Wan being goofy, because that's not really how he was in the first movie at all. And then he just, like, right off the top, right in the opening, he makes, like, a joke and, like, snickers at himself. Like, he's just like, I'm so funny. And right away, you just know, like, okay, he's different now. Like, he's going to bring, he's kind of the lead now, right? Like, he's kind of top build carrying the movie now. So he needs to be a bit more likable than he was in the first one, where he was just kind of stiff.
Yeah, I like how I was going to say, I like how goofy they make him. He's not goofy. He's funny. I actually like all of his jokes in this movie. I think they're delivered. Like, his timing is really good with them, and they're funny. I laugh at them.
He's great. Yeah.
So there's another attempt on Padme's life while she's in her suite. And this whole thing here, this whole event kicks off this excellent chase scene where Obi-Wan ends up leaping through a window, grabbing a hold of a droid that was trying to kill Padme. And in that moment, like, his lack of hesitation or concern for his own safety was so impressive.
Yeah, this starts an awesome, like, section of the movie that I absolutely love. I love the colors. I love those billboards that Zam Wesell is standing in front of that create this, like, neon pink hue all around her. Like, Coruscant feels alien, yet feels familiar at the same time. And yeah, when, like, they're out in the lobby, like, Anakin and Obi-Wan are talking, and all of a sudden they both stop at the same time, and Obi-Wan's like, I felt it too, and they just both go running, and the way Anakin kills those creatures, and saves her, and then Obi-Wan jumps out the window, no hesitation. So cool, so freaking awesome. And the chase that ensues afterwards, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
Well, let's just keep going with it, Corey. Actually, I was going to ask you what you thought about this scene. Let's extend it a bit. Like, what did you think about that chase scene, and even getting into the scene after that in the bar?
Okay, yeah, I think Anakin, sadly, the only thing that brings it down is I think a lot of Anakin's, like, dialogue and the way he delivers it is kind of wooden. Like, he's like, when they're about to hit that giant ship and he's like, ha ha ha, laughing. If you watch him, because Obi-Wan's saying, pull up, Anakin. If you watch him, he's doing this weird, like, laugh thing, and then he has to pull up. I was like, what was the point of that? But again, if you look past that stuff, the speed of it is exhilarating. The fact that he jumps off, I always love him just jumping and falling after her, And then the fact that, like, he lands on top of Zam's car thing, which I think her car looks amazing. And then, he's trying to hit her with the lightsaber. She's shooting back up at him. Like, you feel the desperation on both of them, And then on top of it, you've seen all these other aliens that you've already seen in Star Wars, and, like, Sebulba's race, Doug's. They're like, a Doug goes by and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is everything, And then they crash land, which that was bad CGI. But they go into this club. I love it. And after watching the Clone Wars, like, now, like, even though this was made years before the Clone Wars cartoons, this whole section, I think, fits perfectly with the Clone Wars cartoons. They mimicked it perfectly, and this just feels like an episode of Clone Wars, where they go into this, this club, and again, to my sex, drugs, and rock and roll, just there is some thongs in there. I mean, Lucas, he says that the Star Wars movies are for kids. This one is definitely for more of a mature audience. But like the fact that, like, people are looking around, they're looking around trying to find her, and then Zam comes up behind them and, he just cuts her arm off. It's like, wow. And then, come on. Jedi business. I love Anakin saying Jedi business. Go back to your drinks. And like that's so badass, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Zam, the actress, the lady who plays Zam, and she's freaking beautiful. And her costume is wow. She's one of my favorite designed characters in all of Star Wars. I wish she didn't die, but unfortunately, that's my luck. Any character that I like seems to die. But yeah, from beginning to end, the moment he jumps out the window to the moment that Zam Wesell gets shot in the neck by Jango Fett's Camino darts. And by the way, how cool is it that she gets hit and then you hear the shot like a second later because of he's so far away.
Cool.
That was so cool. Every bit of the scene, every time I watch it, I pay attention to it. Like, I don't do other things. I am completely invested and wrapped up in it, and I think it's exhilarating. But I think Anakin, some of his deliveries are not great.
Dean, what do you like? What do you not like about this section here?
For me, it's kind of the most I like Anakin. Actually, I might like him a little bit later in the movie as well, but I do like him. I like some of his jokes, how they're written. He might not be really delivering them very well, but I like what they're trying to go for. And what I like about the high speed, fast chase is it starts on like a starter pistol. Like it's like, go. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi jumps out the window, grabs this thing. And all of a sudden we're just in this super high speed chase and we're doing it for like 10 to 15 minutes. It just doesn't stop. It's super exciting. I love that. I love how it was so calm before, and then all of a sudden we're just wrapped up in the middle of this thing that is just speeding down these streets. And it's what Corey said. It's like it feels alien, but it also doesn't. I felt like when I was watching like Fifth Element, and they have sort of chases going through Earth. I think it's supposed to be in Fifth Element. So when I watch Fifth Element, I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell this is Earth, even though I know it's way in the future when there's flying cars. I could tell this is Earth. That's what I felt like with this. It was like, this feels like it could be Earth. I know it's not, but it feels kind of like it's familiar. It feels like I know how this would go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's like ads and stuff, like billboards. Like, we get it. And even though there's Orbesh writing on it and stuff and aliens and stuff, but we still understand what's happening and everything. And I think that shouldn't, that's not an easy thing to do, to make things that alien and different, but yet keep them familiar so that the audience isn't just completely disconnected from the entire situation.
Yeah, totally. And I think what I really like about the sort of Anakin Obi-Wan stuff going on is I think it's the best execution of Obi-Wan just like telling Anakin what to do and him just being like, oh yeah, I did it wrong. I'll do it better. I'll try better next time. I think that's sort of the best that they do in the movie of that type of interaction.
I am trying, Master.
Exactly.
That sounded like Obi-Wan saying it, though. That was more like
It did.
that was weird.
That was weird.
I
didn't like it coming out of my mouth either.
I think it's a great scene. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. For me, it's very strong character building. This is the first time we're seeing Anakin do anything. Right? We've heard of how powerful he's going to be. Okay, we've seen the pod race. This is kind of more of that. It's like, where is he at now? And he's so much more powerful now, 10 years later. Like you mentioned, Corey, he's leaping off of a car, free falling through the sky. I love that Obi-Wan says, oh, not again, when he does that. Like, that's a regular occurrence, him just leaping off of high points in the sky, falling to his death. I think it builds more of Obi-Wan's character about kind of how fun and playful he is. They do this thing where, and they start it right here, it's that he doesn't like flying. And they continue that on through several movies. And I think it's really funny because Anakin's this great driver, this great pilot, and Obi-Wan hates it.
It's not flying that he dislikes, it's crashing, I think he says.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so one of the things in the movie that I'm trying to do whenever Anakin is delivering a bad line, I'm trying to ask myself, why is Anakin doing what he's doing more so than why is Anakin saying what he's saying? Because I think while the dialogue isn't that strong, what the underlying message is from him is very important. And I actually think they do a really good job in the movie of sharing how he's feeling and the difficulties he's going through. So, what you kind of have here is maybe he's got like a bit of teenage angst, right? He's just out driving fast. He's being reckless. he almost crashes into whatever he crashes into because he's having fun. He's like, let's see how far I can push this. I don't actually think he even meant to bump into it. He kind of hits it a little bit. I don't even think he meant to. I think it was just like, I'm just goofing around, being a little bit wild, and he actually comes almost, a bit too close. But
I mean, what do you expect from like a 16-year-old with essentially the power of a god, and he's the most powerful Jedi. So of course he's going to be, obnoxious. I was obnoxious and I wasn't, and I have no powers. You know what I mean? Like, and so I do get where Anakin is coming from, and I never have a problem with like the dialogue, the words on the script themselves. It's just, it's how the delivery goes sometimes. And I think this movie, he's better in the next movie, I do think. But I always blame that on the director. That's never the actor, because it's the director's job to direct the actors. And we all know, the notorious GL is way too wrapped up in all the other things that he's doing. And I think Hayden Christensen probably just needed a better coach, or something to help him out. But it never takes me out of the movie, and I never, I'm never like, it never diminishes my enjoyment. And now at this point, I've seen the movie so many times that I can't even imagine it any differently either. So, you know what I mean? So just for me, it's like, well, just leave it the way it is, right?
I think, for me, I think if I just had some sort of like line in there that said like, they like the Jedis didn't want to start him that old. And maybe it's because he was already like just about to be a teenager, he's just about to go into 11, 12, 13, where he's got all these emotions. Maybe that's why they couldn't start him that old. Just something like, oh yeah, well, he's kind of all the emotions, he can't control them because we started him too late. If maybe we started him younger, we would have had that under control. Just something like that would have been cool for me. Because just going from this kid who just like loves life, even though he's a slave, just to this guy who comes back and is just so angry about absolutely everything. Just, it didn't track for me at all. There's no way in my mind that is the same person.
I didn't have a problem connecting him starting too late with the reasoning for it. I thought it was, now maybe this didn't come from the Phantom Menace, but maybe it's from, I don't know, the Clone Wars or some other content, but I always understand that they don't start someone along the path that old because they've already made real connections with the world. And in this case, Anakin made a real connection with his mother. And they like to start these kids off, like they take them from their parents before they even know their parents. So they have no attachments to the real world. So the entire fact that Anakin, loved and was taken away from his mother. I mean, he chose to leave, but the fact that he lost her is the catalyst to the downfall. So I think if you don't kind of see that connection, that's probably already an issue with you buying into everything that's happening. So
for sure. Yeah. I like, honestly, when he says he's having nightmares about his mother, Obi-Wan should just say, yeah, like that's kind of the issue with taking you so old. Like there's nothing in those first two movies that say anything about that. Like I don't know anything about the Jedis except for what someone will just say like, oh, isn't this a rule? And I'll be like, I didn't know that was a rule. You just said it right now. Like that's the only thing I know about the Jedis.
Well, I think Yoda subtly explains things in the Phantom Menace. Like he kind of alludes to things like, you're like whatever fear I feel in you, like he says something about his mother, like, oh, your mother, you miss your mother, right? Oh, great fear I sense in you. So like in Yoda's roundabout way, he's kind of explaining the reasoning for not wanting to take him.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. When I'm watching it, I think that that's just like specifically to that kid, but that makes sense that it's just like overall. That's why they don't take kids that are that old, because they already have attachments.
Right.
Imagine Yoda's shock in Empire Strikes Back when, a fully grown 40-year-old Mark Hamill comes walking through, be like, train me.
Kidding,
and now we know that like they don't even want to train like 8-year-olds because that's too old. Like they want them right from the get-go, which is a problem that I have with the Jedi Order,
Sure.
and not only the fact that they can't sense, a great threat right in front of their faces. I don't necessarily believe or know that I believe they're quite the good guys either. So, maybe they got what they deserved. I don't know.
So one moment in the bar that I really like, it's when Anakin is just walking the bar and uses the Force to make that girl look at him and like him.
Oh, when he walked by her?
He just walks by her, and it's subtle because his hand is kind of by his hip, but he just like motions forward, and then she notices him and starts to follow him like she's into him. So I love
nice.
it. It's like that's kind of your young punk, right? He's abusing his powers here. He's not supposed to be doing that.
That's basically like George Lucas saying, like him like flipping up her skirt with his power or
Right,
something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this whole kind of initial scene and sequence here, this really like sets the rest of the movie in motion, because Obi-Wan, he goes off to unravel the mystery of who's behind killing Zam Wesell, who this in turn is all related to the assassination attempt on Padme. And then Anakin ends up being sent off with Padme to another planet to protect her. So one thing I wanted to do, though, is when Corey mentioned Zam Wesell's arm getting cut off, limbs being cut off in this franchise is a huge thing. So I wanted to have a limb counter as we go through this franchise. And this is the first one. This is the first time a limb is cut off. So this is one, everybody.
Okay.
One. Okay.
One.
That's great. I love it.
Excellent. The top half of Darth
no.
Maul doesn't
Limbs.
count as a limb. Okay.
No, I'm talking just
okay.
specifically limbs. Yeah.
Okay, and anything, right? So meaning like the Wampa's arm in Empire Strikes Back will count, right? Not just main characters, but like
Correct. Yeah.
anything.
Excellent.
Okay. All right.
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to tracking that with you guys.
Now, plot-wise, so far in the movie, Palpatine is running everything, right? He wants Obi-Wan to find this clone army so that it can be put into use for him. He wants Anakin to fall in love with Padme, right? To further his connection to physical beings and you know, the world rather than the Jedi. And he wants Padme off-world so she can't vote against creating an army for the Republic. So he's sent 3 of his like chess pieces in motion here, all off to do his bidding for him so that his plan can come to fruition.
For sure.
Something I noticed this time around in this the scene that happens right now with Anakin and Padme, as they're kind of they get a bit of time together for the first time. It's been a while since they've seen each other, and they're about to go away together. They know that that's going to happen. And Anakin's talking all kind of like grown up, and Padme says that you're so grown up, Annie. He looks at her in this very specific way, and she asks him not to look at her that way because it makes her feel uncomfortable. Now, this time around, what I really think is happening here is I really do think he was trying to mind control her in that moment, same as he just did to the girl in the bar, but it doesn't work. Now, my evidence here that I put forth is, again, we just saw him do it, so why wouldn't he try it again? There was this subtle shift in sound effect at that moment as well. Sometimes they use like force sound effects, like a low rumbling of sorts. There's a bit of a sound like that. When she asks him, like she says, don't do that, I'm uncomfortable. She walks away. He gives her the weirdest, sinister glare as she walks off. You just wonder like what's going on in his mind. And then later in the movie, she actually asks him if he's going to mind control her, but he says that only works on the weak-minded. Maybe because he knows she's not weak-minded because he already tried it here.
Yeah, I like it. I like that happening in this scene. I would be on board with that. This is the thing I don't like. This is the thing I don't like about this movie is this relationship. I don't think in any way that she is into him. And what I hate in movies is the guy that doesn't stop when the girl tells him, I'm not into you. But he just feels like, but I love you, so I deserve you. I hate that. I hate that in movies so much, and that's just what I feel in this one. So I like the fact that she isn't into it. I like the fact that he's trying, maybe he's trying to push and force her here and it's not working. That just like, for me, when we get to the end, I don't like it. I don't like that it ever comes around where she's like, yeah, I do love you. It's like, why? I don't get it. I just don't get that part.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. It's a hard pill to swallow, her being into him. And I think it's their chemistry or their complete lack of
Right.
chemistry is the biggest hindrance, because I don't think the script's not trying to push that forward, but you got these two people who clearly, I assume, cannot stand each other because it just oozes that way on screen. And Tim, I like what you're saying. I never picked up on that when I watched the movie inevitably again, because I love it. I'm going to look into that, and it creates a sinister layer to things, but also a human layer to things, because I think, again, Anakin's just a human. He's a teenager, so he's dealing with emotions. And again, I always push back, like, man, like, I would have done some horrible crap if I had godlike powers when I was 16. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
even if you guys all consider me like a good guy, I would have done some bad shit, and it's just because I was a stupid kid. And I think that him maybe testing the waters on her without her knowing it is a plausible theory, and honestly makes things a little bit more, I guess, believable, for me to able to digest it. Dean, to your extent, like, I'm with you on, especially after the Tusken Raider incident. I'm like, how can you stand there and be into him after he tells you that he kills everybody? You know what I mean? It's like, and that didn't even faze her. Like, that's a little bit crazy, but maybe he clouded her mind, with his Jedi abilities. Maybe he doesn't even know he's doing it, Maybe it's just an involuntary thing, I don't know, but maybe there is something there that will actually make this bad chemistry a bit more explained, and her, 180, basically turn around being like, but I do love you. It's like, really?
Yeah.
When did that happen, though?
Yeah, honestly, that would be great. That would be great if that happened in the movie. Like, if at some point we knew that he did break through somehow, and then that's why it's happening. I would love it. I would love that then. But it's not there for me. It's not in the movie at all. I've looked for it. I've tried to find that something, something to make it work. And I just haven't seen it at all in the movie. So that part just doesn't quite work for me yet.
Yeah, Dean, I was going to say, so if that's your problem with the movie, then I definitely won't be able to help you out with that, because I don't have any answers for you in that regard.
Yeah.
Other than, like, what I mentioned, maybe he is doing something with the Force. Now, we watched him as a young boy win this pod race, do something he should never have been able to do, and he hasn't been trained in the Force. He's just using it. It's just his instinct. So it would make a lot of sense that something like that would just be coming out of him, not even in his control. It's just in his nature. So maybe there's something to that. I think it's kind of interesting to talk about. So
totally. It just brings up sort of some of the main problems I have is just that it's all right there. Like everything's right there for George Lucas to do. And he just, I didn't see it on screen, but it is there. Like it's right there for him. Yeah,
I hear you. So at this point in the movie kind of goes into this thing where we jump back and forth over and over again between Obi-Wan's investigation and Anakin and Padmé falling in love. And instead of us just jumping back and forth from scene to scene, I'd like to just talk about these as arcs instead, so we can just touch on two things here. So let's start off with Obi-Wan. For both of these arcs, let's just go all the way from here up until the three of them are together on Geonosis, and we can pick back up there again. But Obi-Wan, he basically turns into a detective here and needs to unravel this mystery. And all he has is this toxic dart. So Corey, what did you think about these scenes with Obi-Wan? What did you think of his detective work and just everything that kind of goes on along the way?
I love Dex. It's a Camille. Hold on, let me say, the cloners. There we go.
Yeah.
I love Dex. I love that little diner that he goes to. I don't, and then of course, that leads him to finding out about Camino, because Dex sees the carvings on there or something. He's like, oh, they're cloners. They're in the Outer Rim. Then he has to go into the library to try to find it. And then, it's not in the system. So we already know something is rotten in Denmark. And then frickin' librarian Jocasta Nu being like, oh, if it's not in the system, it doesn't exist. And
fuck her.
And this
Dean's favorite.
Right? Seriously.
I hate her.
And this was the time that I was like, but it's that she's the perfect representation of the hubris of, the Jedi.
Yeah.
So of course he finds out, it's Camino. And he goes to Camino. I love Camino, by the way.
Man, I love it.
I love it. I love the way it looks. I love the Kaminoans. There we go. I love the Kaminoans, Tanui, and all that kind of stuff. I think they're awesome. I still don't understand the Sifo Dyas thing. They tried to explain it in the Clone Wars, I think. I poor Filoni, always having to try to pick up Lucas's, pieces and make them make sense. But I still don't get the Sifo Dyas thing. But you know what?
Can I just stop you there for a sec, then?
Yes, please.
I can fill in some holes because I have done a bit of investigation with this because it's so fascinating. I always loved in this movie how they mentioned this guy only once and then never again. But from my understanding, Sifo Dyas was on the Jedi Council, and he was not really in line with what the council was thinking. So he was didn't agree with their beliefs or what they wanted to do. He earlier on thought that they did need this army. He went out on his own and placed the order for the army without the approval of the council.
But how do you do that? How do you order an army? Like what deposit do you put down on that? That's what I have a hard time, that all of a sudden they just create an army based on you asking for it?
Well, he must asked be loaded. For it. No, he didn't. He asked for it. He placed the order, and then he ended up getting killed. Dooku and Palpatine picked up on his plan, and they were the ones who came in and funded it. So that's why they say the order was placed by Sifo Dyas. It was funded ultimately by Sidious.
And wouldn't it have just been easier to say that Sidious was just acting like Sifo Dyas, meaning I'm Sifo Dyas, that's my name, so don't wear it out. It's that's so complicated.
That's what I always assumed.
Yeah, I did too. I always assumed it was like Dooku or something, someone
just used a name,
a dead Jedi's name. But okay, I mean, that's none of that's in in the movie, and only thing I was gonna say about the Sifo Dyas thing, I've racked my brain about it for so long. At this point, I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? I'm just I've moved past it. But it's something that's always sort of bugged me. But it's the reason I can move past it is because where we eventually land on Kamino is one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars, and that is the Jango Fett Obi-Wan fight in the rain.
That's why you wanted to come on this episode, Corey, to talk about this.
I mean, guys and gals, we're gonna spend the next hour just talking about this scene.
Here's your moment,
but man. I love that it's in the rain. I always love rain in movies, so I love that this scene was in the rain. I think Jango Fett looks amazing. I want my dog, our first dog. I want his name to be Boba Fett, just so I can say, "Boba, get on board," And I love how quickly he just goes into action against Obi-Wan, and of course, it's just we get to see all the things that we wanted to see from Boba Fett.
Yes.
But I think it pays. I think it's really well done. I think it's paid off well. I think it's a fun fight. I always enjoy it. But it's the fact that they made it happen in the rain, man. It's that's just the icing on the cake. It's a beautiful scene. It really, really is.
Yep. Dean, what do you want to touch on? What did Corey miss?
Corey didn't miss anything. It's that scene's great. That scene's awesome. Jango Fett looks awesome. I love it. I think the mystery solving is very fun. I think there's a lot of fun stuff happening there. When I try to dig in, I don't really get it at all. I just think when I actually try to follow, I can't. I don't know why it's missing from the archives if they need him to find the planet. That's what I don't quite connect.
It was probably that Sifo Dyas guy. He probably erased it from the archives because he was going against the council. Right.
Yeah. So what I didn't know is that Sifo Dyas really put the order in. I didn't know that. I assume it's Dooku, because later when he talks to Jango Fett, when Obi-Wan talks to Jango Fett, he says "Oh, do you know Sifo Dyas?" And he says, "Nope, I know Dooku." Or no, sorry, he says, "No, I know Darth Tyrannus or whatever." So that just made me think, oh, okay, Sifo Dyas is just a name that someone used. So I get confused by that, but. Yeah, I also don't really know why they clone Jango Fett. It doesn't matter, but
well, so real quick, in the Jango Fett Bounty Hunter video game that came out for the PS2 and the GameCube, that whole story is the crucible, what happens in order for him to become the clone, the clone template.
Yeah.
Because you see Dooku holds this like thing, this bounty thing, and whoever wins, is going to be the person he basically. So yeah, you get that entire story as to how he gets chosen and everything is in that video game.
Okay, that's interesting, because I was always thinking, like, if a Jedi placed the order, why didn't a Jedi use themselves to be cloned? Like, if Jedi, like, if there's midichlorians and that's in your blood, why wouldn't you clone a Jedi to have all that?
Well, I'm going to push back. There's a big thing in Star Wars universe is you can't clone the midichlorians.
Oh,
so
okay.
like Palpatine can clone like his body, but it's just going to be a vessel. It's not going to have the midichlorians in it and all that kind of stuff. And I think just this entire conversation is the whole point of the Mandalorian TV show about how Grogu, they needed his blood, because I think that's going to lead into Rise of Skywalker, yada yada.
Right.
But I think to your point, I think in some of the tertiary canon, they established that you can't like clone a Jedi and then have the midichlorians be there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. See, I'm glad we're having these talks. Yeah, I'm glad we're having these talks. But it's in the blood, so I thought, like, why can't you clone it if it's in the blood? Anyways, so now I know, and it's fun. Yeah, the mystery solving's fun. It's fun stuff. I like that he actually gets the clue solved by like a kindergarten class. I really enjoyed that part.
That was cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, definitely. That showing that kindergarten class was great too, because it's a setup for later as well, which was nice.
Yeah, and it's just like it's a group thing, It's like all the Jedis are still working together, It's like, I liked it.
I love like how clean and white Camino is, and just like these buildings in the middle of the ocean. Like, what would even be on that planet? And man, I always just, whenever I see that, whenever I enter into that city, I always get this weird feeling, because it seems so different than everything else in Star Wars. It's like this, it's just unlike anything else.
And you think, and it's interesting that the clone, the clone's armor being like all white, I think it's more of a Camino thing than it is like a Coruscant thing, So it's just interesting that their design aesthetic kind of stuck around. But I also like how the Kaminoans, I like how this is like George Lucas's version of tall gray aliens, like from Close Encounters of the Third Kind or something. But they look so very Star Wars. They look so different, but yet so similar. Yeah, I love everything about the Obi-Wan stuff in this movie. I could just watch over and over again, like you, Tim. I don't usually skip it, but I kind of don't always pay as much attention to the Anakin Padme stuff during this time until we get into the third act, Yeah.
Camino, it was so sterile, which made a lot of sense, because it had like this hospital feel, because they're growing people, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine they need everything to be just pristine. You can't have like germs and stuff like that getting into your cocktail, your clone cocktail, right? So everything is just real clean and neat. I remember just that, the Obi-Wan and Jango fight, it looks super cool. I remember being upset when I was younger. I was like, why can't Obi-Wan beat this guy? It kind of threw me off a bit. And I just never paid Jango the respect that he deserved. And I do now. And it's a lot of fun to watch, basically, Boba in a way fighting a Jedi, because that's what we wanted to see, because we knew that from the original trilogy. You want to see what Boba can do. Sure, he has like a little encounter with Luke, but that was nothing. I want to see, what he's like fighting a Jedi, and we get that with Jango. And
the only thing I don't like about that fight is that this movie solidified Slave One's cockpit not rotating. So all the toys and everything about Slave One, the cockpit like rotates as it moves. So like when you walk into it, you would just sit in it.
Right.
And even the original model didn't have it rotating. So honestly, George Lucas basically stuck to his movie, Empire Strikes Back. He didn't look at anything else, and he's like, oh, Slave One, it doesn't move, it just sits there. You got to look up, and it's just like, and I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
That seems so unpractical that you have to just like lay down for the cockpit. And then I'm like, but in all the EU canon, the thing rotates. It's like, what a simple, why?
Yeah.
Why did you have to do that? And I hate it. Not going to lie, I freaking hate it.
Another thing I liked about that scene was that Boba fires missiles and hits Obi-Wan. He's actually contributing to the fight. He can't even see because his chair won't swivel. He can't even see what he's shooting at. He like shoots the missiles, and he's kind of peeking over the glass to see if anything if he got anything. It's fun.
It's good.
Get him, Dad. Get him. Fire.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's super fun.
So yeah, they Django and Boba get away, but Obi-Wan follows.
I love that when he throws that freaking that tracker thing. I was like, yeah, he just chucks it right on there.
It's
like,
a sick throw. Yeah, it looks like he has a really good arm. Like I watched it and I was like, he just threw a strike from left field. Like that's a good throw.
Yeah, dude, his form is great. Yeah, I love that. And Tim, what you're saying, I love the chase to Geonosis between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett and Slave One.
Yes.
And all the things that you see Slave One can do from inside the cockpit and everything is amazing. I like, he doesn't have his helmet on. And he's got those cool, headphone thingies on that it looks so retro, Jango Fett does. And I even love Obi-Wan's Jedi fighter. I think it's amazing looking. I think it's so cool. But man, oh man, that seismic charge, that first time I ever saw it, I mean, I almost wet myself.
Me
I was
too,
like,
man.
this is amazing.
Yeah, I thought something was going wrong, like with the audio.
Yeah.
It was such a weird
And then all of a
thing.
sudden you're just like...
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
There's a cool part of that scene where Obi-Wan basically, he does this trick of landing and hiding on like the backside or underside of an asteroid, and then Django and Boba fly off to Geonosis. In Empire, Boba uses that trick to catch up with the Millennium Falcon. He did the exact same thing. So I love I love the thinking that Boba probably wondered how Obi-Wan survived and was able to track them to Geonosis, and then figured out that's probably what he did. And he puts that in his book of tricks and pulls it out later. I thought that was really cool.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
He doesn't give up, this guy. That's some dialogue that I don't like, by the way.
That's fine. It's fine. All right, so let's move on to Anakin and Padmé's story here.
Do we have to?
Fast
want
forward.
to.
Next scene.
No, I want to.
Fast forward.
Yeah, exactly.
The podcast.
Fast forward. Anybody
I want
listening,
to talk
feel
about
free to fast forward. No, I want to say some stuff here. As corny as some of these lines are, it's like Anakin and Padmé's time bonding here is obviously completely necessary for this movie. So while Dean, you're not buying into the fact that she falls in love with him, I think one of the reasons why you don't buy into it is because she's not sharing any of that, because she doesn't want to fall in love. She wants to remain senator. Her people are her most important thing. She's trying hard not to have feelings for him. He's the one who's like visually pushing it for us. He's pushing the narrative. She's trying her best to hide her feelings. So she's not sharing any of that information. But it's like, while the acting and the dialogue is kind of hard to watch, the important info to pick up in these scenes is their conversations and how Anakin is justifying his feelings for Padmé, even though it's forbidden by the Jedi. Also, his dislike for the political system, because he says if it were up to him, he says he'd place a wise figure at the top, and that person would dictate the right thing to do to the people. Right? Well, that sounds a lot like Palpatine's plan. So there's all these moments of basically Anakin sharing. It's like sharing time. He finally has somebody to tell things to who's going to listen to him. And like Padmé's basically his outlet. So all of these things that he's saying, I find it really important when like you want to consider his fall in the next movie and how quickly he falls. People always say, I even said it, I'm like, I don't like that third movie because it's almost like he flips a switch and now he's the bad guy. Well, here's where Lucas is laying the foundation for all that, if you're paying attention. Basically, every one of these scenes, Anakin is sharing another kind of negative thought that he's having, like a negative thing that's happening in his life or a negative thought. These are all like real bad things for him to be dealing with because a Jedi's not supposed to deal with this. And he can't talk to the Jedi about it. If he starts sharing this with the Jedi, there's going to be a major problem. So he's got no one to talk to. So he talks to Padme.
Yeah.
I used to dismiss these scenes, but I just feel like the dialogue really evolves Anakin's characters and the dark thoughts he's having all the time. And, yeah, I guess that's it.
I think these scenes would be really good if Anakin starts the movie charming. He needs to be charming because I need to know why she would be into him. And I just don't like, from the get-go, he's just been horrible to her and weird. So I know that it's in the movie that she wants to be senator, and that's why she wants him to be Jedi, her to be the senator, and that their relationship will be a problem to that. I just don't know why she would ever be into him. So if he starts charming, and he's still charming here, but he's sharing these different thoughts that he has, and then he makes a switch later in the movie where he does something acting on his anger, and then the switch starts happening, and then he starts getting really, really horrible, but she's already like into it. She's already, connected with him. Then I would love it. I would just be so much more into it. It's just this feeling I get from him that he's just been horrible to her the whole time, and just like feels like he's owed this from her that I just can't. Yeah, I don't like it. But what I do like in this part is when they're kissing, and the music just like does like a record scratch, basically. It's just like, it stops when Padme stops the kiss. It's like the music just kind of stops as it's swelling. I think that's so funny. I think John Williams, like, just putting that in there is a hilarious moment. I laugh out loud every time. So it's good for that. It's good for that moment. But I'm with you, Tim. I like these parts. I just need him to be charming up to this point.
It's weird. I literally agree with both of you. I think all of this is layered. I think, I don't think the problem is in the script. I think the problem is in the delivery. And I think the problem is with the chemistry between the two leads. And I think the problem is with the director not doing a great job, like, directing live action people. But I do agree with you, Tim. I think that this is all connected to Revenge of the Sith and everything. And you can't just look at Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. You have to look at his complete entire trajectory throughout these three films. And I think you're right in that he's already layering this malcontent thoughts into Anakin right here. And they're not huge. Well, I mean, they are huge because Anakin will kill an entire tribe of Tusken Raiders. And, can we talk about that, or are we?
We're right there.
Yet?
Go ahead. We're right there.
Okay, so one of my biggest problems every time I watch it, because I can excuse a lot, I can get past the bad dialogue or the bad delivery, the bad chemistry. I have a hard time with Padme hearing come out of his mouth, "I killed them all." Now, if you cut it right there, I can still buy her being okay, but he says, "I killed the women and children too." And I'm looking at it, and this is one of the first times I'm watching, I'm being really critical when I'm listening to it. I'm like, I paused it. I was like thinking, I was like, okay, maybe she's just in denial. Maybe she's just thinking he's a 16-year-old kid spouting some BS and being like, I killed them all. Maybe she doesn't quite believe him. I don't know. That might be a possibility. Our conversation earlier, Tim, what you're saying, maybe he somehow clouded her mind. Yes, he said those things. Yes, she heard it, but he somehow like kind of just allowed her to move past it. I don't know, but man, that's a tough pill to swallow as a viewer to buy. And we all get, and here's the thing, we all get why he killed them all. We get it because we saw it, but Padme wasn't there. And she's just kind of taking his word that like they deserve to die, even the women and children. And that, I think, is a bigger damnable act than him turning at the end. And it in this movie just kind of goes past it. It just kind of is like, nope, we're just gonna slide right past it. With Padme, I'm just like, okay, I guess. And yeah, and it's almost like George Lucas, like, yeah, but look at her stomach, isn't she hot? And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, like, let's focus on the story here. Just stop putting her in such hot costumes. You're distracting me, George Lucas. But like, damn, like, I don't know. I don't know what she sees in Anakin that she would allow for that. You know?
I mean, this should have been a major red flag for her. She doesn't even address the murders. Like,
no.
When he tells her,
she says,
sure,
you don't like sand. It's okay.
No, she says to be angry is to be human. What the fuck? What about all
what
the
fuck?
murder your boyfriend just did and confessed to? What about that? So I like there's definitely something weird going on with their relationship. It's not your traditional relationship of like he has feelings, she has feelings, they're sharing them. Like I really think if she has been directed, by Lucas as, look, you are falling in love with him, but you're not allowed to show any of that. Like if that was what her direction was, would that help you guys at all? Like if he said, look, you're slowly falling in love with him. Everything that he's doing, you're falling in love with for whatever reason, but you can't play it that way. You got to play it straight.
No, the only thing that helps me is your theory that Anakin is doing something with the Force. And you know what? I'll take a step further. Maybe he doesn't even know. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's so powerful that he can control other people's wills with his like subconscious, meaning like, I'm not actively trying to do it, but I do want you to be on my side. So my subconscious is going to do that.
Right.
Tim, your theory is the only thing that makes any of it any better than what we already seen.
Yeah, she's telling him like no the whole movie. Then he shares that he killed a bunch of women and children,
and then she's in love with him.
She says yes after that. Like that's the trajectory of how she's reacting to things he says, and that's just it doesn't work for me. Even if Lucas is like you can't show it, you just can't show it. I still wouldn't like it because of how it's written.
Yeah, so it's funny because it reminds me of one of my favorite episodes of Seinfeld where Jerry Seinfeld, he cries for the first time. Well, not the first time, but he cries and then he becomes like, he lets go of his emotions. He becomes kind of an emotional guy. And then at some point, George Costanza is like, okay, I can confide in you because, you're emotionally open now. And there's this great little cut where it goes from like George being like, I can confide in you to then, now it's close up of George and he's like, and that's it. That's, all of my deepest, darkest things, and then the camera just moves over to Jerry and he is just mortified. He's just like, just frozen in terror. And he's like, I think you scared the emotions out of me. And that's what I have always expected, like a close-up shot of Anakin saying like, I killed them all. The women, the children, they're monsters. I killed them like animals. And the camera should cut over to Padme and she should just be mortified. She should just be slack-jawed and just horrified by his actions.
Definitely.
But no, she's like, oh, Annie.
Yeah.
You're just angry. That's okay.
Yeah. That's just human.
I agree with that. It was a terrible moment. That actually doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's one of the, and for me to kind of coincide with Dean's thoughts, that's the part that I really have the hardest time swallowing.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I think this is the most important moment in the movie, though, for his character, for his downfall. For me, this is what solidifies the fact that he has gone to the dark side, is when he does something like this, because it's what, Yoda was worried about. It's like, we can't take you on as a Jedi because your connection with your mother is too strong. And this is the type of thing that could happen. He kills all these women and children and men, right? So this is it. This is where you should know that there is no coming back for him, because there's been small steps along the way of him kind of declining. But this is where he just outright murders a bunch of people out of feelings he has for someone. So, but I enjoyed that Anakin went back to Tatooine in this movie. I like that we got to see Watto again. Like that was kind of a fun scene. I liked learning that his mother was freed as a slave and got married. I thought those were all like really nice moments in the movie.
And like you got to see like those two sand, like the Jawa, like sort of I don't know,
vehicles?
like meeting. Yeah, well, there's multiple. We've never seen that before. There's like, so it's almost like a Jawa meeting area or something.
Oh, so
that was cool. And by the way, another line that I love is "Chut chut, Watto." I love how much like just attitude he has when he says it, But I'm with you. I love that we go back to Tatooine. I love that we see Watto, but just not a lot of him. Like we don't need him anymore. We had him in the first movie, but it's nice to see him, and it's nice to know that Shmi had some happiness in her life before. I mean, guys, like, we can assume bad things happen to her.
Oh, yeah.
By the Tusken Raiders. It's
Yeah.
bad. So
that was a tough scene.
It's nice that she had some happy moments before the end. You know,
It's really tough.
Yeah.
And
and of course, Owen Lars and Aunt Beru are great. You know, like, and they got perfect cast for young them. Sorry, Dean.
I was just going to say, Tim, we like hats on the podcast, so it was nice to see that Watto joined the hat club for this movie.
He had flies.
He
buzzing
flipped the
around
bowl
him,
upside
though.
down and put it on his head, and he joined the hat club.
What was with all the
yeah.
flies?
And he did have flies. Yeah, he
He's
did.
really fallen from where he once was.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, smells. I guess he smells like garbage now.
Too many chance cube rolls, I think.
Yeah.
And I really like C-3PO. I like his look in this movie. I like the non-shiny gold. I think he looks really cool with that matte gray or whatever, you know?
Yeah. There was a really cool shot here on Tatooine that I really, really loved. Don't even know if I noticed it before. Noticed it this time. It's just before he goes out to kill the Tusken Raiders. He's talking to Padme. His shadow's being cast on the domed house. And his little man bun and everything, the shadow looks exactly like Darth Vader. And they show you the shadow of him hugging Padme before he goes off. And it looked 100% like Darth Vader hugging Padme. Then he goes off and becomes Darth Vader. I thought it was an incredibly nice touch. Look for it next time if you watch the movie. It's beautiful. And I know they did that with a poster from the Phantom Menace. They had like young Anakin walking with the beautiful poster, large shadow of Darth Vader. They did it in the movie here, full size. It was beautiful, gorgeous.
Do you think they used CGI to make that happen in this?
Oh, probably. I mean, since they basically use CGI for everything, but it made sense because just kind of the way his hair was and the little bun. Actually, what you could tell was they used his direct shadow and then they made it look like he moved a little bit and they kind of fixed it to make it look like Darth Vader.
Oh, yeah.
But they made it look like as he just turned a little bit, that was the new perspective. It's very subtle. It looks real. Like it looks like a real shadow. They did a good job with it. I'm a big fan of that scene.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to add to that, Tim, I liked that they played Duel of Fates as he's riding out to find the Tusken
I didn't
Raiders.
even pick up on that, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. So, by following Jango and Boba, Obi-Wan has come to Geonosis, where he finds a droid army being created, he finds the Separatist leaders, and he finds Count Dooku. And we learned some really cool things here from Dooku. We learned that Dooku was Qui-Gon Jinn's master. We also learn from Dooku that a Sith Lord is running the Senate. I thought that was really interesting to hear, really cool. You know, at this point in the movie, you don't know what this guy's all about, actually. You don't know if he's good or bad, so that was a nice touch. One other thing we learn about here in the movie franchise for the first time is the whole Sith Lord and apprentice lore. And it's that the apprentice is always searching for a more powerful apprentice for themselves so that they can overthrow the current Sith Lord. And it's like, that's just the way things are done. And if you are a Sith Lord, just expect that your apprentice is always on the hunt for someone more powerful to overthrow you. I take it almost like the way that the samurai want to have an honorable death. Like an honorable death for a Sith Lord is to have their apprentice become so powerful that they overthrow them so that the legacy of the Sith can continue. Like if I'm not the most powerful one, you should be, so you can continue on in the way. And this is the first we kind of hear about it. And it continues on, you know, throughout the franchise, throughout the Clone Wars. I really love that.
Yeah, I think that
up until we find out that the whole point behind it is so that Palpatine can suck the essence into you, as per Rise of Skywalker. And I mean, guys and gals, as much as you don't like it out there, if you're yelling at the in your car that I hate that movie, it's still canon. So we have to still consider the things that they say in that movie. But I do love that Sith rule. I think it's really cool because it also keeps you, if you're the top dog, you got to stay on top. You got to always be ready to fight back. It breeds strength. It's almost like this Spartan sort of mentality, and if you're weak, you're done. It's over for you. So yeah, I think that's really cool too. And I like Dooku. Honestly, I think Dooku's a cool ass character.
I love Dooku.
And I assume by now everyone knows that you could see his bust in the library, the Jedi library. You could see Dooku's bust in there.
Oh, I
like
didn't
all
notice
that kind of stuff.
I didn't notice
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
I'll look for it next time. That's cool.
Right, yeah. It's a screen left. It's like the first bust that's screen
then
left.
I probably saw it and just didn't realize it was Dooku. That's cool though.
It's totally Christopher Lee.
Nice.
But which makes sense because he was a Jedi that I think they thought they lost or whatever. But
he was a Jedi. Yeah,
he retired.
Yeah, he's a retired Jedi. But yeah, it's cool. I like this stuff.
He traded teams.
Yeah, I'm done, guys.
Yeah, I really like this scene. I think this scene is pretty tough for somebody to have to walk in and deliver these lines, and Christopher Lee just kills it. Like,
yep.
The best in the movie. Like, it's just, he comes in and I'm so into it. I'm so into this scene where it could fall so flat. It could be one of those scenes that I just like check out, don't even understand what anyone was talking about, because he's like telling the truth and kind of lying, but he's not lying. He's just like, he's totally just telling everything that's going on to Obi-Wan because he does, like you said, Tim, he wants him to join him. Like, he actually wants Obi-Wan
to overthrow Sidious if he can.
He's actually sad that Qui-Gon Jinn isn't alive anymore because he thinks Qui-Gon Jinn would be a good person to join him.
Yes.
Like, he gives this scene so much gravitas, he brings to the table. Like, this could be impossible to do, and he just walks in and fucking nails it.
Yeah.
Now can I talk about the scene that I don't like on Geonosis?
Yes. Is it when Django gets killed?
Yes, absolutely. The factory scene, the Padmé Anakin factory scene. If you watch on the extras, on the Attack of the Clones extras, George Lucas specifically says that, he liked that shot when Obi-Wan looked down and saw the factory, and it was a shot that was done obviously after, and he's like, oh, I like it, let's go there, let's do that, and so he tacked on this entire scene here when I think Anakin and Padme were originally supposed to be captured more quickly, and I assume he was going to lose his lightsaber in that capture as well, so they just extended this further. But the weird thing is, by doing so, he had to force a canonical change to R2-D2.
That's
and
hilarious.
This is when we are introduced to R2-D2's thrusters. And sure, it's not like, why is this a big deal or not? It's just like, and I hate it so much. I hate his thrusters so much because we never saw them before. In fact, you don't see him use them in any other scene in Attack of the Clones. In fact, early on in the movie, when Padme and Anakin are going to like the shipyard to go, leave on their little journey, you see R2-D2 have to waddle down stairs, like waddle down these little stairs. You don't see him use the thrusters after this either, in the Battle of Geonosis, because it was all an afterthought in this scene right here. And in fact, Revenge of the Sith is the only movie in the entire George Lucas canon that in script form, he knew that R2-D2 had thrusters, you know what I mean? And actually could incorporate them into the story. But then it's just like, then you go back and look at everything else, and you're like, why does he need to have an elevator put him up into the Naboo fighter? Why does he have to have a crane put him into the X-Wing later? And yes, they added this whole canon like, oh, they broke. And no, they shouldn't have been in there in the first place. That was ridiculous. And then, if anything, I would have rather them just been in the factory scene and then not in Revenge of the Sith, because again, it's like Revenge of the Sith just solidified it. You know what I mean? And then I'm just like, so where were the little thrusters in New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, in any of them? Because that would have been, if R2-D2 could fly around in those movies, that would have been so much more helpful. But he couldn't, because this was an afterthought. But one thing, I can kind of keep rolling with these things, but I will also say, as much as I hate it, that is one thing that I love about the notorious GL. He is not precious about Star Wars. I think he's upset when he sold it, but he's not precious when he's making it. And he's like, it is. This is it. This is what I needed for this to happen, for this scene to work. This is what I need. I'm not going to worry about the canon. He doesn't give a crap about canon. And I respect that non-precious mentality about your art. And I think that's a lot of artists are not like that, and I think that's interesting. But all that being said, I hate that factory scene. I really do.
I'm with Lucas. I don't give a crap about canon either.
Nice. Okay. Just make it fun, right? Like, that's the idea.
Yeah,
just have it be fun.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Let there be all sorts of ideas. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, I respect that about Lucas a lot, that he would change stuff. I did, when that happened in this movie, just think like, why didn't he use this earlier in the movie? Like, it is a thought in my mind at this point, just like,
hold on 1 second though. Hold on 1 second though.
Yeah.
What about Master Yoda? How many times do you see Master Yoda being powerful? Maybe R2's just like, hey, I don't need to use them because I don't need to use them. I'll use them when I really need to use them. I don't know. Maybe he's got a Master Yoda complex where he just limps around, but then when push comes to shove, he pulls his thrusters out. No, I'm just kidding.
Honestly,
Corey, I totally understand
Tim,
what you're saying.
You're right. It's right there. All you need is C-3PO to say some line about it, because then it just shows that R2's a stinker, because he is, C-3PO just needs to be like, you have thrusters? Why have we been lifting you up all this time? Boom. Done. We're done. It's just right there.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Corey, I agree with you. I don't like that factory scene. Basically, nothing happens. It's just kind of like a waste of time. To be honest with you, I don't even understand what's happening as I'm watching it. With Anakin and his arm getting trapped, I have no idea what's going on. No idea how he gets out. The one thing I do like about the factory scene is what happens with C-3PO, because I thought it was very, very funny. It added some humor to the movie. Now, I'm saddened to hear that you are not a fan of C-3PO, which makes me think maybe you didn't enjoy this comedic.
As much as I do dislike C-3PO, I actually do enjoy, and it's funny because you're like, well, this is a very silly C-3PO thing, but I'm like, with C-3PO, I'd rather you commit to him being silly. He should be the silly character. That's what I want from him. So, Tim, to your point, I actually really love the whole, like, die, Jedi dogs. Oh, what am I saying? I was like, oh, that's funny. This is, to me, honestly, the best use of C-3PO.
Yeah, I loved it in this movie. I thought it came at a perfect time. So that's what I did like about the factory scene. But hey, you want to cut like whatever 15 minutes out of this movie for that? That's perfect. This is a really long run time for a Star Wars movie.
Long movie.
So go ahead, cut it out. I'd be cool with that.
Because we still have like 30 minutes when like the Battle of Geonosis like starts, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So Obi-Wan's on Geonosis. He contacts Anakin, who in turn passes the message on to the Jedi Council, letting them know about what's happening on Geonosis. And I
love how he says, care of the old folks home. Did you ever notice that? He says, send the message, care of the old folks home. That's his code for the Jedi Masters, the old folks home.
No way.
Oh, I never noticed that.
I never noticed
that.
That's
so funny.
That's so cool. I love that.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Jedi share the news with Palpatine, and Palpatine here, he needs a way to get the clone army sanctioned. So his assistant says they need to vote emergency power to him in the Senate so he can put the clone army in play. Jar Jar, who's currently covering for Padmé, is more than happy to suggest the amendment because he's easily influenced, or maybe, as I suggested in our review of Episode 1, maybe Jar Jar is secretly a Sith.
No, Tim. The Gungans are weak-minded, and Palpatine needed him in this position so he could control him, so he could control his mind, put this thought in, and make him say this in that council.
One way or another, he's controlling him, Dean. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's controlling him. He's not a Sith. He is just an idiot.
I don't subscribe to that theory. I just like that here's another opportunity for it to come up again. When needed, Jar Jar does what the bad guys kind of need done.
Yeah, but isn't it better that he's just a dum-dum and he was influenced? I think that's better. I think it's better for Palpatine's plan that he got this idiot in this position that he could influence.
I agree. It is better for his plan. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm just having fun. I'm trying to have some fun here.
I know.
Settle
Tim.
down.
I just
Can we
hate
have
that
some
theory
fun?
so much.
I thought I
Can't
was
have
gonna...
fun talking about Star Wars. That's crazy talk.
I came here wanting to have some fun, guys. Come on.
Oh, we are.
Where are your wild theories? What the hell? So this basically takes us to the final act here on Geonosis, where a bunch of fun things are happening. Like the whole C-3PO thing that we already touched on. I love it. He gets his head knocked off. His head gets put on a droid. And then a droid's head gets put on his body. And it's so funny. Both of them going around is just, I liked it so much.
And I really like the three alien, during the execution scene of Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme. I love the three different alien creatures, that they bring out. I think all three of them are really, really cool looking and a lot of fun. And I think they do a lot of fun things with them, like, having the creatures randomly killing Geonosian, guards and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like how, even though it becomes sort of sexualized with her shirt getting ripped, I do like how they show Padme's so capable. And I think that's something that they really show in this movie and in the next one, how capable Padme is. And then you can kind of like extrapolate that outwards and be like, Princess Leia, just as capable and everything. And I think that's really, really a cool thing. I've always loved the Padme character. I think she's an awesome character. But I love how you see her do her own thing. Like, she freaking climbs up that pillar and fights that cat creature on her own. She doesn't ask for help. She doesn't ask somebody to save her. She does it herself. And yes, he slices her back and it rips the middle of her shirt. And yes, I love it. I don't care. I love it. She looks amazing.
She's got great abs.
But just great abs. But I do think it kind of overshadows, that little thing overshadows really how strong of a character Padme is. I mean, look, Lucas is coming at this movie from a different time period. I think nowadays a different director would not have sexualized Padme as much as Lucas did. I think George Lucas had a huge crush on Natalie Portman because he's just putting her in. Even on Tatooine, he's showing off her midriff. It's crazy. But I think a lot of it sadly undercuts how capable she is. But that whole scene is awesome. There's so many little fun things about the execution scene, like the fact that Newt Gunray has this thing that he wants to kill Padme because
so funny.
I love that. He's
hates her
she
so
can't
much.
do that. Shoot her, kill her. I love that stuff. And then you got so many cool things happening in this scene, and then just to have it all coalesced with frickin' Mace Windu walking out and putting that lightsaber up against Jango Fett's neck, which is of course foreshadowing, and but it's so frickin' cool. And then it's like such a seamless way to transition right into the arena battle, and then the arena battle transitions right into the big battle. It doesn't stop, which is really cool. And then you see all kinds of cool stuff, like Jango Fett kills that one, dinosaur looking Jedi, and then does the cool little, gunslinger thing with his, gun. It puts it back in the holster. Really cool. He flamethrows Mace Windu's, Jedi robes, and then he gets into the conflict, which was a terrible idea. He should have just stayed back and watched things happen. But he got into it. And it's just the moment that his backpack got destroyed, I was like, oh, he's dead. He's not going to make it out of this. But you know what? I will say this. He stood his ground against a Jedi coming at him full force. So you know what? He went out like a dude. He went out like a bro. And that was it.
Totally.
So there's so much fun stuff to watch in this. So my one note that I noticed this time, and I wanted to ask you guys, when the Jedis do come in to rescue him, this one Jedi throws Anakin a green lightsaber. My question to you is, was that just that guy's lightsaber? Does he have two? Or is there some kind of warehouse of generic lightsabers that you can grab in the Jedi temple to kind of use? Because we know that the lightsaber is your life. Anakin or Obi-Wan says that you have to hold on to it. They make it. It's unique to them.
Yeah.
So did that guy just throw his own lightsaber, and give it to Anakin? I just was like, oh, whose lightsaber is that actually?
That's interesting that he would just be like, grab a couple extra. We probably need a couple more. I
we
like
might
that.
need 'em, yeah.
I never really thought where those came from. I like it. I don't know. I think he just grabbed them off the wall when they were leaving the temple. They're like, hey, grab a couple extra.
Yeah, maybe they have some sparring lightsabers or something, or I don't know. But yeah, so.
I've never thought about it before, but he probly had two, if that was the case.
He probably, maybe he just had
that
two.
guy, yeah.
If they're so important, why wouldn't you just carry two with you all the time, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dean.
I just wanted to say, because we're talking about the battle, I did want to say that I really do actually love the Anakin and Padme scene right before the battle. I do like that a lot.
Where she confesses her love to him?
Yeah. Yeah, I just like the scene. I just don't think that the movie earned the scene, but I actually really like it. I think it's a great moment. I love two characters sort of confessing their love right before they're about to die or right before they think they're going to die. They're just going into it and they're like, you know what? I got to tell you I love you. I really liked it. I really liked that part because then for me, it makes for me the best part between them, like Anakin and Padme during that fight. Like, I'm totally on board with, the stuff they're saying to each other. I do find it charming during the fight. I like how they're interacting with each other, working together to fight, just in that entire battle. I think it's really fun, that whole part. I wanted to earn it. I wanted to earn up to that part.
I completely agree with you, Dean.
Yeah. This whole arena battle, the beauty of it for me was Mace Windu coming in and bringing... 40 Jedi with him. And they flood this arena, and you can see it in the background. There's you can see glowing lightsabers blurry in the background of each level of this arena. And you can see the Geonosians are they all start to fly away as these Jedis have shown up. They're all scared and they're going away. And this is something we get once and only in this entire franchise, which is an army of Jedi fighting. You never again will see 40 Jedi together fighting in a battle. And I thought it was so beautiful just seeing all these lightsabers, seeing them work together, fighting this army. Lots of them get killed. I'm not, if you watch the Clone Wars cartoon series, a battle like this, 40 Jedi would not be getting killed. So I had to take this one with a grain of salt, but sure, a bunch of them get killed. Then, when Mace Windu shows up with the Jedi, you expect that to be the end of this battle. That's all you need, is you need these Jedi. They're going to come in, they're going to win the battle. That's not what happens, though. They get circled. They're all about to be killed. And then Yoda comes with the clone army. That's the real save of the day, is this army is now in play. And I mean, how cool was that part when this army comes in and it looks so great. And there's so many clone soldiers just on the ground fighting, shooting. There's this really cool dust storm scene where you can't even really tell who's fighting who. It really had a great war feeling, of just chaos of both sides just fighting. It was,
and I love the way the clone troopers looked. I personally love the Revenge of the Sith clone trooper armor more. But I thought the way they looked here was really neat. And while I liked the color designation of who they are, what your rank is, I do find that to be impractical. Just going from a Vietnam era sort of mentality, high-ranking officials would never show it because you would be sniped,
right?
From a distance. So in my headcanon, what I say happens by the time we get to the OT with stormtroopers and everything, I think that to us, they all look white, but if you are actually wearing the helmet, you would actually be able to see through the heads-up display, the HUD, who was your commanding officer. I think those colors would be apparent if you had the helmet on. But that being said, I think it really made them look cool, and I do like how it looks, just knowing, having a military mindset. It's just a bad idea to let the enemy know who your officers are in your ranks.
Yeah, totally.
But all of this scene is amazing, though. The action is just, I think this is some of the most fun Star Wars action we've ever seen up until this point. Now, I do think the Revenge of the Sith, the opening battle, is just untouchable. But this right here is probably some of the biggest straight up like ground battle action shoot since we've seen since. I know that Phantom Menace was kind of similar with its final battle, but let's be honest. Both of them were both of the opponents were CGI. There was something that felt just fake about Gungans versus, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But there's something different about this because there's real actors involved. All the clones are obviously CGI, but there's still those Jedi. So there's something that makes it a little bit different. And I would say that this is probably the biggest ground battle that we've ever seen in Star Wars. I think it's bigger than Empire Strikes Back, the Hoth battle. I think it's bigger than the Naboo battle. I think it's one of the biggest battles we've ever seen, even in the sequel trilogies. I can't think of a battle bigger with more pieces happening.
This is for sure the biggest in the movie franchise. It's the big Jedi battle. This is very reminiscent of the Clone Wars cartoon, the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars cartoon. They have some really big epic battles like this. That's kind of what this reminds me of, but you don't get anything like this again in the movies, which is what makes it so much fun because this is what you want to see. We all wanted to see a battle like this with the clone troopers and the Jedi fighting side by side. This is why the Clone Wars animated series did so well, because it's the Jedi and the clone troopers fighting together, battle after battle. It's really great. We get a glimpse at the Death Star plans here, which is cool because one of the Separatist leaders is the one with the plans.
Yeah.
And Dooku takes it and says, I'll give this to my master. So
and that Separatist leader, by the way, is Poggle the Lesser.
Okay.
Nice.
Great. It's great to know.
I'm a nerd.
We're all nerds. But what I like about this is, look, Sidious has this master plan, but he's taking and borrowing wherever he can. He didn't invent and create everything himself. The clone army, somebody else placed the order for it. He just came in and funded it. The Death Star, someone else has already created the plans for it. He kind of steals it. He takes it. He builds it, right? He's just utilizing things wherever he can grab them from. He's resourceful.
Like every great leader.
Yeah. I love it.
Awesome.
Anakin and Obi-Wan in this battle, they follow Dooku and they engage him. And what a beautiful display of power as Dooku just completely owns them. He electrocutes Anakin, then almost kills Obi-Wan. He cuts Anakin's arm off. That's limb number 2.
Nice.
Then when all seems lost, he's about to kill them both. Yoda shows up to fight Dooku. And when I was in the theater, the entire theater erupted in applause as Master Yoda came walking around that corner. It was hopeless. All seemed hopeless. Nobody in that theater knew how Dooku was going to get defeated. And Yoda comes out. It was a beautiful moment. It's a moment we've all been waiting for because we want to know how tough is Yoda. What can this guy do? Let's see it. Show us. He's the master. He's the most powerful Jedi. Prove it. And they prove it here. And it turns out he's pretty tough. We'll give him that. He's
very tough.
Too.
He's pretty good. He can absorb the Sith electricity.
Pretty awesome. Shoot it back.
With his hands.
With his hands.
He does it without his lightsaber. He does it with his hands.
Yeah, exactly.
And shoots it, he absorbs it and shoots it back.
And
then another time he just absorbs it and he just kind of puts it away, puts it in his pocket.
He put it in his pocket for later.
I'll save that for later.
I might need that. It's awesome. Yeah. So then he gets in the lightsaber fight. He's leaping around. He's going bananas. Just an awesome moment. It's an awesome Star Wars moment. Really great build up to this. It all happens at the end when we need a really positive thing to come. This is what comes. And we learned that Yoda was Count Dooku's master as well. Very, very cool scene.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can remember seeing this in the theater. I can remember the theater exploding when it happened. I will say upon rewatch, I don't think it's as good as I thought it was originally. I think it's a bit CGI heavy, and then it's just close-up shots of Dooku, just Christopher Lee just swinging his arm around, But if you can just kind of like put that aside and just let it wash over you, it's exhilarating. But I just don't think it's as exhilarating as the first time I watched it.
For sure.
Yeah.
It never will be, right? Like you'll never be able to relive that moment. I think you have to do that with this whole movie, is just let it wash over you. You have to put a lot of stuff aside. You got to let kind of the big moments hit. You got to look for meaning in some of the moments that maybe don't hit with you. I feel like almost every moment in this movie has some sort of story building involved in it, but you got to look for it. If you're getting bored and you're tuning out, you're missing a lot of story points that actually help and build this story. So that's why the negativity of people, when they talk about these movies, they'll probably never be able to get past that, because you have to be open to this movie to really let it work for you. It's why these movies really worked for me the first time. It's why they worked for me after that. But then when I took a break from it and came back, they stopped working for me, because I knew of the negativity that came along with it, and I bought into that. After that happened, I stopped watching them for a while, and this whole franchise walkthrough is forcing me to go back to them, watch them in order, one after another, really get into it, get a feel for it, and I'm loving it. Like I'm able just to let it wash over me. That's a great way to put it, Corey. And I'm loving it. It's just I feel like a kid again.
George Lucas is such a singularly, uniquely different director from anybody else out there. I mean, no one, I think we've seen it. We've seen it with the sequel movies, I think that it's hard to make Star Wars. There's a lot of things that are like abstract, where you're like, that feels like Star Wars, that doesn't feel like Star Wars, that does. But you're never like, why? You're like, I don't know. It just feels like Star Wars. And I think Lucas, obviously, he always knows what feels like Star Wars. But I do think that he's such a different director with things, and he also doesn't care about things that other directors care about, like getting like a great performance out of his actors. I don't think that that's important to him. I think what's important to him is that he's telling this monster story, this story that is, I mean, think about it. He knows at this point, whatever he puts out there is going to be in people's minds for the rest of their lives, for years to come. These are not movies anymore that are just going to come and go. These are going to be, they have to add to a canon. There's so much responsibility, and I think he's aware of that. And I think him being one man, I think there's only so much he could do, with everything. But I do think it takes a certain kind of like, you have to get into the George Lucas mindset to really get into all the Star Wars films, or like really get into the minutia of them. And it's you have to give George Lucas some allowances to kind of not care about little things here and there, and then just move past them.
Yep, agreed, 100%.
I think something that's really subtle in the film and really powerful is just that arrogance of the Jedi. Like, that's really important, but it's really subtle. It's never just sort of stated. And even all the way down to this final battle, where they know that like something's going on with the dark side. It's clouding their vision. But Obi-Wan is just like, oh yeah, me and Anakin can take this guy. We can take Count Dooku, no problem. It's like they're not even thinking like, what if he's one of the Sith? Like, he's been doing all this stuff behind our back. What if he's one of the Sith? He's going to have like, how can us two take him? He's just so confident, and they walk in there and they both get their ass kicked. Like, there's some pretty good fights, but they both just get their ass kicked. So I loved that. I loved that they needed Yoda. They didn't have it under control. And there's other things throughout the film where, Yoda and Mace Windu have all this confidence, and I just are kind of ignoring other things out there. When it's just that arrogance of them, and they get caught. They get caught here.
Well, they get caught because I don't think they've ever come across Force lightning before. When you think about it, that didn't happen. There was no Force lightning in Phantom Menace. So
right.
Technically, if you start there, this is the first time you see it.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge trick up Dooku's sleeve that just immediately throws them off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Yoda must have known about that, because
Yoda would have.
He
Yeah.
caught
After
it,
like
but-
700, 800 years of
But
experience.
right.
Yoda's
knows.
keeping secrets though, so like Yoda's not telling anyone
Definitely.
that he can't see the forward into the future. So yeah,
Right.
he probably didn't tell anybody about it.
But that's actually a good point. Yoda's keeping secrets. And I think that is, to your point, Dean, the hubris of the Jedi, and thus begins the downfall of the Jedi.
Yeah, even just like they're so skeptical of making Anakin a Jedi, and then when they decide to, they just forget about him. They don't care anymore. Like they're sending him on missions and stuff, and Obi-Wan's even like, I don't think he's ready, and they're like, oh yeah, he's fine, no problem. It's like, why aren't you keeping an eye on him?
Yeah, not gonna lie, Mace Windu's a dick to Anakin from the get-go. Through
totally.
the entire prequel series.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I love Samuel Jackson. I love Mace Windu. I love the character. And I'm like, dude, you're a dick. You're kind of a dick to Anakin.
Yeah. I kind of like the foreshadowing of Dooku fighting three powerful Jedi, including arguably the most powerful, and he gets away, right? That's a bad sign for the Jedi.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that
Yeah.
happened, right? Because
For sure,
Yoda
yeah.
was trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Anakin and Obi-Wan were trying to kill him, and three of them.
Yeah, no one's trying to arrest him. They're trying to kill him.
Trying to kill him.
Make no mistake.
Right, yeah. Someone that powerful, they just want to kill, and they can't do it.
Yeah.
Three of them against one, and he's the apprentice, right? That's a bad sign for the Jedi.
It's a bad sign.
But that's also because you need to look at all of these movies with Anakin in order together. So when Anakin in Revenge of the Sith fights him and beats him one-on-one, you're right, Tim. That's kind of like like an indication of how powerful he is.
yeah.
Yep.
Anakin, not Dooku. Yeah.
No, and I mean, literally, that moment in the franchise comes almost immediately after this movie ends.
Yeah.
So some years have passed, but it is, yeah. Anyways, that's next. That's next episode. But Dooku escapes and he meets up with Sidious, who's very happy to hear that the war has begun. Obi-Wan meets up with Mace and Yoda doesn't think Dooku was telling the truth about a Sith Lord running the Senate, but that they'll keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Great
Sure,
job, guys.
buddy.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, little buddy.
Yeah.
Can I just say real quick that whatever that Sith castle in the factories of Coruscant that
cool, eh?
Sidious was building,
Oh, yeah.
I loved it, and I'm so disappointed that we never go there again in Revenge of the
Yeah.
Sith, because
Yeah.
I always thought it was really cool looking.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was just on the outskirts of like the main city. It was very, very neat.
Yeah.
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 But this movie ends with the glory of the clone army. We get to see all the troops, the ships, the Imperial March is playing in the background, and Supreme Chancellor Palpatine is looking on. We see Anakin and Padmé have gotten married, and the only witnesses being R2-D2 and C-3PO, and the end.
Yeah. And again, like, good ending. I kind of like that they get married at the end. Just, like, I like it as an end thing to the movie. I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, they were talking most of the movie how that would never be a possibility.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a bit of a nice twist that happens. Right. So
it's
great.
very important. It's very important to the story that, like, they are going to be together and they are going to have to do it in secret. So it's just kind of, it's fun. It's fun for the next one to be like, how are they going to hide this from everyone?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or are they going to? Are they going to try? Right? Are they even going to?
Or
try?
are they going to try? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. I liked it. Do you like it a little
Yeah.
bit more, Dean? Or
I
no?
do. I do like it a little bit more, for
Okay.
sure. I really only have, like, kind of that one major problem
I
about
hear
it. And
ya.
it just always gets in the way when I watch it.
Yeah.
So, and because it's kind of the first half of the movie, I started out and I'm like, oh, I don't like this thing. But then I always come around by the end. The end is the end is so good. I just love so much about it. So I do like it. I don't know if it's going to scrape its way from the bottom, but I do like the movie. Like, I still enjoy watching it. We'll always watch it when I'm doing the watch throughs. It's not like I would ever skip it or anything. I think it's cool that it's called Attack of the Clones, and the clones are actually on the side of the Jedis. Like, that's something that I didn't expect going into it. I thought the clones are going to be bad. Attack of the Clones. We got to fight off the clones. But the clones are with the Jedis in this movie. I thought that was kind of a cool little twist to the end. Yeah. And one thing I did just wanted to add at the end here that I did notice this time around is the first time, and it kind of goes with the rock and roll part of Corey's thesis, and that's the head getting cut off of Jango Fett. There's Boba Fett has that head at the end, and he's always got the helmet at the end. And I always thought, like, is Jango Fett's head still in there?
It is.
Yes, it is. It's totally in there.
This time around, I noticed it's not. Because when the head gets cut off, there's two shadows. One goes flying off screen, and the other is the shadow for the helmet.
Oh,
I even
really?
rewound to see if I could see there's a shadow that goes flying off screen, and I think that's his head, because that makes more sense than just like holding your father's head.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Like logistically, the head should not go flying out of the helmet.
Well, unless it's just a helmet that just goes down.
That's probably a tight-fitting helmet.
But we've all seen so many memes of like they've photoshopped it where he's like holding the and someone actually makes the head fall out, which that's what I've always expected. But I'll go back and rewatch that for that.
I think the head goes flying out and he's just holding the helmet at the end. That's
perfect.
What I would say.
Weirdly, that's less morbid for Boba Fett.
I like him holding the head. I like what that would do to his character and like his thirst for revenge.
So holding the helmet for me is just like, now I need to do this. Like, I need to be this. I need to put on this armor. I need to be this guy. Where the head is a little bit different.
You know what would have been so cool then if there was no head in that helmet? If he had just turned it and put it on at that moment. That would have been
hell
so
that would have been
cool.
Awesome. That would have been fucking
That would
rad.
have been cool. Yeah. But yeah, so like my final wrap up thoughts, like I do love this movie. I have such a soft spot in my heart for it. It's not in my like top 3 or anything. Honestly, it's probably in one of the lower ends. But for me, all Star Wars is like at a base level, I love it. You know what I mean? Just I love some more than others. But I will say that I think this conversation from both of you brought about things that make me want to go back and right now revisit it, look at it from a different light. I think, Tim, you know, what you're saying about possibly, Anakin manipulating Padmé through the Force. And then that kind of like led my thought into like, you know, maybe he's doing it even subconsciously. I think that adds a lot better layer to it, you know, than what I originally intended. And Dean, I don't have any way to dispute the problems that you have with it. I think you're completely valid in all of the problems that you have with it. And, you know, I'm with you on most of it. It's just whether it, you know, how much it affects my enjoyment of the film or not is a little bit different. But this movie, there's so much stuff happening. And by that I mean like fun stuff. Like it's such an action-packed film with so many neat locations and different things to look at, different things happening, and such fun characters. They're cloners. I mean, like how much fun is Dex? You know, it's just
so fun.
There's so much cool shit going on in this movie that you can really overlook its downfalls, and its downfalls are pretty freaking glaring. We brought them pretty much all to light here. But I think what you're left with is a great start of the Clone Wars cartoons, you know? Like right now you can go right into the Clone Wars cartoons or not. You also have a great start to Darth Vader's arc, you know, for his downfall in the next movie. I think it's one of those things where it works both ways. You don't have to watch the Clone Wars. You can go right into Revenge of the Sith. I think it still works. But if you want to watch the Clone Wars, you're going to get so much more out of it and everything. And it's really cool. And George Lucas makes movies that they hold up over time. Like, I mean, years later, we can complain about the CGI. We complain about all these other little things here and there, but at the end of the day, we're all going to be rewatching this movie in 50 years. Like, it's going to be a part of our life for the rest of our lives. And it's still going to fit in place. It's still going to be what it needs to be. And that is just the beginning of the downfall of Anakin. And both of you guys, and I think both of you guys really helped me see some subtle things in this movie it's so funny. Lucas is so bad directing actors, but yet he's quite good at putting in some subtle stuff in here. And he is a master craftsman, even though he might not be a master in every part of his craft. He's still a master craftsman of filmmaking. And this movie, I think, is a representation of that. And you know what? Long live the notorious GL.
I would just say, for my part, anybody out there, check this movie out again. Try to get the negative, the negative vibes that a lot of people put on this movie for whatever reason. Just try to push that out of your memory. Just maybe go into this movie with a fresh outlook. I think it's a really good movie. Corey, dude, thank you so much for joining. Please plug some of the stuff you do with everybody.
Sure. Yeah, you guys, hey, I appreciate you guys having me on here. Thank you so much. I always love coming on Talking Back. It's such a great show. I love both of you. I respect both of you as content creators, as artists, and, you're both my friends. So I love you both. But if you guys, thank you. If you want to hear more of me, you can a lot more of me. You can swing over to Podcasting After Dark and check us out over there. We are our buddy Zach and I do a cult movie podcast where we basically walk through and break down cult movies, from the 80s and the 70s and the 90s, weird stuff, crazy stuff, weird, wild stuff, like Scanners. I'm currently editing our 4-hour breakdown and review of David Cronenberg's Scanners. So yeah, go check us out over at Podcasting After Dark. We also have a spinoff show over there called TV Obscura, where we talk about a bunch of weird TV shows that no one ever remembers. And of course, you can check me out every week with our pal Adam on Cartwright, a Seinfeld podcast. We are, by the time this drops, we are already into season 8, and we've done an after show for every single episode all the way through. So if I'm not, talking about cult movies or talking about Seinfeld, I'm listening to Talking Back. So, and I appreciate you guys always having me on here, and hopefully I can come on again and talk about another ill-fated Star Wars film.
Maybe.
We love
maybe
you, man.
Corey might be back. Corey, we love you. You're welcome anytime. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dean, thanks for joining.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.